German Chancellor Angela Merkel says meetings between the presidents of the United States and Russia should become normal again. This after President Trump invites Vladimir Putin to the White House this fall.
Ich finde, dass es wieder zur Normalität werden muss.
Merkel says that 90% of the world's nuclear weapons are in the hands of the U.S. and Russia, and for that reason alone, the two leaders should be talking. The Russian ambassador to the U.S. says the Kremlin has yet to formally respond to President Trump's invitation to Vladimir Putin, but he says his country is open to it. This follows the two presidents' summit in Finland on Monday. Joining me now is Matthew Continetti, editor of the Washington Free Beacon. Matthew, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Is President Trump's invitation to Putin to come to the White House next fall the best next step in this?
It's a next step. I think some people are wondering whether Vladimir Putin has done anything to merit a White House invitation, since there was nothing in the way of concessions, it seems, on the part of either President Putin or President Trump during their meeting in Helsinki. But President Trump clearly wants to continue this relationship, and so I think he figures the next step would be to have Putin in D.C. to continue these talks.
President Trump, of course, faces a firestorm of criticism this week surrounding this meeting with Putin, not just the meeting itself, but certainly the press conference that happened right afterwards, and then the clarification the next day about what he meant in terms of Russian interference. Is all of this going to have a lasting impact on the intelligence community and their relationship with the president?
Well, I think the president and the intelligence community already had a strained relationship going into the Helsinki summit. And the comments that President Trump made during the press conference between himself and President Putin probably did not much to help that. Of course, the few days since the press conference, President Trump and his administration had been walking back some of the statements he made during the press conference, and indeed even some of the statements he may have made in that private one-on-one meeting with Vladimir Putin, the substance of which we really still don't have a clear idea of what happened.
Sure, a lot of questions there. What about American voters? How has this played out with folks across America?
Right. Well, I think most American voters don't pay too much attention to foreign policy when we're in a time of peace and prosperity like we are today. And I think when you look at most polls, you find that the Republican Party continues to be highly supportive of President Trump. And so I think a lot of Trump supporters are unlikely to be moved one way or the other by what's happened over the course of the week. The problem, of course, is that the voters have their say every 2 years, and in the meantime, you have a government to run. And I think some of the statements that the president made, statements which he's been trying to correct since the meeting in Helsinki, those statements have caused problems within the American government.
Let's look at this from a Russian perspective, because a lot of Russians see this as a victory. Has President Trump been outplayed by Putin?
Well, it's hard to say because, you know, when we look at actually what happened substantively coming out of that meeting, it's not clear that President Trump gave anything up. I think President Trump is very open to discussion. And I think when he talks to people, especially in a one-on-one situation, he'll entertain a variety of ideas, but he never really commits to them. And so what we've seen in the days since the Helsinki summit is the American government having to say, no, that idea that was brought up in the one-on-one discussion, an idea like saying we're going to hand the former American diplomat to the Russian authorities, or we're going to allow a referendum to be conducted in eastern Ukraine. What the administration has been saying in the days since the meeting is those ideas aren't actually U.S. policy.
Okay. Before his summit, of course, President Trump attended a two-day meeting in NATO, and that, of course, got some controversy as well when it comes to criticizing NATO allies and pushing them to contribute more money. How important is NATO in defending Russia?
I know there's a lot of debate surrounding this topic, some of it started by the president himself. I personally believe that NATO continues to be instrumental to American deterrence. It's the idea of collective security, of building up a situation of strength, and creating a high cost for aggressive action that allows us to deter our adversaries, which unfortunately includes Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Okay, so a lot to think about, a lot to digest here, especially after this week. Matthew Continetti, editor of the Washington Free Beacon, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you.